Welcome to DownNotableContent. My name is Alex.
And I'm SJ. We share the last name Herschel and are two down-to-earth guys bringing notable content from the world of gaming.
Today we will discuss Gris, a game that I started and finished recently.
Let's get right into it. Herschel. 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 How are you doing, my good man?
Doing good. Semester started this week, or last week, since the last time that we recorded.
Must be busy, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, always kind of getting back into it is kind of an adjustment, but no, yeah, things are good. I mean, I haven't felt overwhelmed or stretched too thin yet, so it's been good. But
Yeah.
how you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, busy weekend, but it was nice that we had, well, at least I had Monday off yesterday,
Yeah,
so I could take care of stuff around the house, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
always a good time.
So, Alex, you started a new game recently.
Mhm.
You actually brought it up in the last episode. Do you
I
want
did.
to give a quick intro on that?
Yes, so I recently bought and played and finished Gris, which is a game made by Spanish developers, so it's spelled Gris. And for all those of you who speak Spanish, I know I'm butchering the pronunciation of it. I'm sorry, but I'm going to roll with it. And that actually translates to gray, the color gray, which I didn't know before starting, but after having played it, makes a lot of sense. And I'm really excited to talk about it because it was really, really good.
Okay.
And I have a lot to say about the game.
Now, I have some questions ready
I am prepared.
about your experience of Gris. So, you know me. I am a gameplay-oriented individual. Tell us about the gameplay. What can people expect?
So I would say it's why I didn't immediately come to you and say you should play this game, because I don't think you would be captivated by the gameplay.
I figured.
The gameplay isn't particularly the game's most gripping component. However, it uses gameplay to tell a story very, very effectively. So we'll talk about that at some point, I'm sure. The game is kind of a walking simulator. You definitely spend more time walking or lightly jogging around the world. Now, it is also a bit of a platformer. Not a difficult platformer at all, but you do have jumping around and climbing. The landscape climbing is a really big theme in the game.
Can you fall and take damage, or is it just more of you just have to restart?
So there's no health bar. So if you fall, you just lose progress and
You just have to
make the
climb
climb
back up?
again.
Okay.
You gain other abilities like the ability to double jump. You have an ability that makes you better able to handle certain environmental aspects that the game puts you through. And so you progressively gain an ability that helps you traverse a new area that you go into as you make your way through the story. So it's kind of platformy, kind of puzzly, but it's not a difficult game at all. And it is very calm. And since there's no health bar, there's not really a way to be in fear of losing.
Okay.
But it's because the game is using that aspect of the gameplay to tell a part of its story.
So the whole time you're basically just on exploration mode, right? You're not worrying about anything. You're just going
Yes.
as the story progresses.
Mm-hmm.
So as you learn these new abilities, double jump and whatnot, do you ever revisit places where you've been, or is it always linear?
So you can go back and revisit. I revisited the first area after getting my second ability and didn't notice that too much had changed.
Hmm.
But there are the game's version of a collectible that I do think you would need to go back and revisit those areas pretty deeply in order to collect all of those. But kind of because of how the game is structured, like honestly, narratively and thematically, I didn't really feel a need or a reason to go back
Right.
to those areas. And because the game is so story heavy, which is an interesting thing, because if any of you have actually played this, you'll understand what I'm saying. But if you look at it, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of story going on, but there is. Anyway, but because of how the story is progressing and what the story is telling, it doesn't make a lot of sense to go back because of what of each of these areas symbolize in
I mean,
the
for a
meaning.
game that isn't focused on gameplay itself, that makes sense because you're not really going to be incentivized to go back, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So what is the story like? Is it a sad story? Is it a triumphant story? I'm guessing there's a lot of mixed emotions involved.
This game tells its entire story without saying a word of dialogue or even giving you a word of written communication.
There's no text or anything.
Nothing.
And wow, that's impressive. Are there like facial reactions? Do you ever see your character emotions in that way, or is it more like body language?
So body language is a big aspect. I'm gonna color the opening scene for you. There's only 3 cutscenes in the entire game. The game, it took me about 4 hours, I think, to get through it. So it's not very long, but 3 cutscenes. And so you open and you see Gris, that's the name of the character that you play as. And she is singing in this statue, and this statue is a figure of a woman with her hands outstretched, kind of like this, and Gris is standing here. Sorry for listeners only. I'm going to try to be as descriptive as possible. And Gris is singing, and then the statue starts to crumble, and she falls very, very far. And you wake up, and Gris has lost the color from her hair, the color from her face, and for the first 3 minutes or so, you're walking, but like it's visibly clear that she is distraught and completely depressed and kind of hopeless. And the game is completely monochrome for this first section. There is no color, only black and white. And you wander around this landscape that's very desolate. There's not much going on until you start to get to kind of the main hub of the game, where you come back and revisit multiple times as you progress. And so the game doesn't tell you a lot. But as you go, as you complete each area, you unlock these new abilities. But the main thing that happens is color is restored to the world layer by layer. And I'm not going to reveal what colors in specific, but there's a different color for each emotion that these sections represent, that as Gris goes through it and, symbolically feels these emotions, that color comes back in and she's able to feel it again. And the story, without going too much into it, is a journey on the 5 stages of grief. There are 5 main sections, and each of them handle a different, what's the right word for that? Trait or attribute of the stage of grief and what it feels like to go through something emotionally distressing.
So it's pretty obvious that it's the 5 stages of grief, or is that something that you kind of had to think about? And
it wasn't at first, and I will say, I went ahead and and read something online because like I wanted to understand, and the game makes it clear for people that do go and find all those collectibles
Mm.
because achievements are tied to the different words on the stages of grief. But
Okay.
before I even knew that, I knew that, I mean, the synopsis of the game is Gris is a young woman who's just gone through a traumatic experience and she's trying to process her emotions.
Mm.
And knowing what I know about colors and how colors are used symbolically throughout different media, and the visuals that the game uses, it's pretty easy to tell, but it's also like confirmed through the achievements and names of different things that you unlock in the game. But yeah, it's her journey going through it. And I'm not going to say what this traumatic experience was. It's still very open to interpretation,
Mm.
but they do make it pretty clear at the end of the game exactly what happened, and it hits. So if you're gonna play, be ready. And
So you don't find out what she lost until the very end.
yes,
Dang.
there are things that kind of foreshadow to it, but if you're not paying attention, it's really really easy to miss.
Right.
Like there's one
Right.
section in particular where I don't remember seeing anything about it leading to this, but after going online and seeing, you know, experiences that other players had had with the game, they talked about how they realized what the larger story was in this section where I thought it had very little to do with the overall plot.
Yeah.
And so you have to be dialed in and focused on the game as you're playing it in order to get the most out of the experience.
That is interesting, though. I mean, I guess, like, it's such a simple game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And its complexity lies in the story and the foreshadowing, it sounds like, and it rewards players for paying really, really close attention to surroundings and whatever is going on. It's kind of cool that you start out with all the colors, right? And then it goes to all black and white, and you can tell that she's distraught. I mean, I think going from something really colorful and then to black and white, that's a really good visual cue to tell you that she's lost something significantly and that the whole world around her is basically black and white now because of that, right? That's interesting.
Yeah.
So is there no difficulty? Like anybody can play it? As long as you can push a stick and jump a little bit?
Anybody could, but not everybody should.
Is that because of just how heavy the story is?
If I were to give that game to a 10-year-old who likes playing video games a lot, I don't think it would mean a thing to him. I just think in order to enjoy this game, there needs to be some... It's like one of those movies that you would watch growing up and be kind of like, it's kind of boring. There's not really a much here that I like. And then if you revisit it 10, 15 years later and you realize that it's this incredible piece of work, I feel like that's how a lot of people would go with this game. I think this game has a very specific audience that, you know, anybody could enjoy this game. I'm not trying to sound pretentious or like, you know, you need to be this level of sophisticated or mature. But I also can see why it would be very, very easy to lose the impact that the game has if you're not properly prepared and looking for what the game has to offer, if that makes sense.
So I guess you need to go in with the right expectations.
Yes.
I mean, knowing that it's an emotional tale about a girl. And I think if you're someone that would appreciate something like that, I think you know who you are. Right.
To be frank, if I had to legitimately think of like putting an age recommendation on this game, I think anyone who's 13 or older, anyone who's ever really felt like legitimately sad in life could enjoy the game and could really, really like what it brings. And at the same time, if, you know, someone hasn't really experienced a really difficult experience in their life to that point, then the message might be lost on them. Or if someone's experienced something difficult earlier in life, they could also enjoy it. I just think it just kind of depends on who is going to be playing it, I guess. But
I mean, you probably need some kind of emotional experience and maturity to be able to, because the whole point, I think, is that you need to be able to empathize with the character.
Mhm.
And if you can't quite do that, then it might not be for you, right?
Yeah.
Because I think you'll have 11, 12 year olds that are quite emotionally mature, that have gone through hard things, that might appreciate it. But and also probably your attention span, would you say? Like, because it's not throwing entertainment at your face,
Yeah,
I would guess.
It's not very. Yeah, it's not action packed, or it's subtle. It's not in your face. It's very natural, I guess. Like the ambiance, the feeling that the game creates is very fragile, and you have to be ready for that.
So you've got to be able to have that patience, right?
Definitely.
And also be able to appreciate it for what it is.
Definitely.
And its simplicity and beauty and storytelling and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Other specific things about it that you want to talk about?
The score,
like
the music.
Okay.
The music is incredible. It was composed by one guy, and with indie games like Gris and others, it's very, very easy for a game to just kind of use one song and then give it a bunch of variations
of it. Yep.
But Gris has like 3 or 4 different songs for each of the sections. The soundtrack is on Apple Music and Spotify if you want to check it out. It's about an hour and a half long, and there's still songs that are, modifications or, similar to other songs and just slightly different.
Right.
But I'd argue that about an hour and 15 minutes of that entire soundtrack is made up of unique music, and it has the same vibe and the same feeling throughout it, but the melodies and harmonies are different in all of them. And it works very, very well in the game. Like, musical direction is just something that always grabs my attention. If a game can nail its musical direction, it can take a game from a 6 to an 8 very, very easily.
Yeah.
And this game does it so well.
So you said there's like 3 or 4 different songs?
3 or 4 different sections. With like 2, 3, 4 songs for each of those sections.
Okay. Is there like a noticeable difference between the 5 different stages of grief, or is it separated differently?
The music, I don't think the music's as focused on the stages of grief as it is. It does seem to get more full and less like hollow feeling. Like, it feels like there's more instruments or more going on in the song as you progress, because you're feeling more and more.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, it is just, I don't know how to explain it properly, but they're different and they're unique. But it's not like I heard a song and being like, oh, this is the perfect expression of anger. Or this is the perfect expression of depression. Like, that's not quite how it is, but it fits for each of the story beats very, very well.
And that's probably for the best, I would imagine, that it doesn't try to portray an emotion with a certain score specifically, because that's, I think, subjective and would probably take out a little bit of your own exploration with the game, right? Because it doesn't want to throw what's happening at you. It wants you to explore it.
Exactly. Like, it's it's like Breath of the Wild, right? Breath of the Wild, each player can have a very, very specific journey. And that's because all of those gameplay elements are set up to let someone experience it the way that they need to feel it.
So, are you saying this is as good as Breath of the Wild?
I knew that was coming. No, it is not as good of a game as Breath of the Wild. And it is...
Is it even comparable, though? Can you even say that it's not good as Breath of the Wild?
I would
Because
say
it's
the
so different.
one thing that's comparable about it is when I look at my most unique gaming experiences that I've had personally. I know Breath of the Wild is an open world game. There's a lot of open world games. I haven't played a lot of open world games. So Breath of the Wild is a very uniquely special experience for me. And Gris has a similar level of uniqueness. I haven't played any other game that's offered quite the same combination of feelings and offerings within it. It's its own thing, and it's incredible.
Well, and when I asked you to compare to Breath of the Wild, I mean, I was completely kidding.
I know.
But
I
it
know.
is cool that there was a little bit of a connection there anyway.
Yeah, that's I had that thought I was like, this feels as much for me as I felt when I was playing Breath of the Wild.
Honestly, if any game can make either of us feel that way, because we were there the moment, like we shared that feeling together in the same moment, right? So we both know what that's like and how powerful that is. If any game can recreate that in however medium, that's a sign of a good game.
Well, and I think, you've talked to me a lot, and we've talked about it on the podcast a lot, about how much Fire Emblem Three Houses means to you. And it's that type of game where, for whatever reason, it just came at the right time and hits you in a certain way that makes you feel certain things, that it's just just a treasure. Like,
now, let me get back to the numbers. So how much did you pay for this, and how many hours did it take to complete? I want to look at the value proposition.
I got it on sale. It's usually $20. I got it for $4.35.
Not even $4.99.
$4.35.
Wow. Dang.
And I got about 4 hours out of it. So about $1 an hour.
That's good. That's good.
For indie games, that's a very, very good price, because
that's rare for indie games.
Are cheaper, but they also tend to offer less content than bigger games. And so you end up usually paying more for each hour of enjoyment. We've talked about this on the podcast before, for indie games versus AAA, big developed games. But I got pretty much a AAA money value out of this indie game that was very emotional, an experience that I'm very, very, like, emotionally and spiritually grateful that I had it.
Yeah.
Because it's just that good.
So, assuming that our listener is the target audience for this game, and I think, go look this game up. Watch reviews on it so you can see little snippets of gameplay and stuff. If our viewer, you right now, you that's listening, right? Alex, now that you've played the game and completed it, let's say they can't find it for under $5. At what point do you think, to you personally at least, would it be worth it? Would you have paid the $20 or what?
If I had known the impact and what I would feel and how much I would enjoy the game when I was playing it, I would pay the full $20.
Okay. That's a powerful recommendation.
I don't think this is a game that is endlessly replayable.
Right.
But I do think I'll find myself coming back to this game. Like, I legitimately think this could be a good tool to help someone process and cope with difficulty in life. Like, not even just traumatic events, but just moments of extreme stress or anxiety. Like, I legitimately think that this game is therapeutic and has that level of power. And so it's not replayable in the same sense as other games, but this will not be my only time playing this game. Like, inevitably, something sad is going to happen in my life, and I could very easily see myself going back and picking up this game, playing it in an afternoon, and using it to go through what I need to go through. So,
right. I mean, you might go through different experiences, and 5 years later, pick it up, and you might infer different things from it. Who knows, right?
You know, maybe different sections hit a little bit more because of different things that you've experienced and felt. Exactly. I think this is a game that can grow with the player, which I don't think a lot of games are capable of.
Right.
But I really do think that as you grow, your experience with the game will grow and change just as much.
Well, and that's the power of tapping into the emotions, is that your potential for impacting your viewership or player base is going to be completely variable depending on the emotional state and maturity and life experiences of whoever is playing that or watching that. So that is really unique.
One thing I just want to throw out there, I know that there are people out there that struggle with single player games. I know that, you want to play a lot of games with other people. And I will say, for those of you who struggle with that, if you're going to play a single player game, this should be one of them. Because you don't need anybody else to enjoy this game with.
In fact, you may want to be alone.
Oh yeah, if I had someone else with me and even just like making comments on, how amazing the game is, even if they really liked watching me play it, it would have taken away from the experience. I think it's something that needs to be a one-on-one interaction. So
if I'm watching Interstellar, I don't want anybody saying a word throughout the whole thing. Don't you say a word. Oh my gosh.
Much. Like, for certain movies, it's fine.
If it's comedy,
absolutely. Even like
go ahead.
Action adventure. Like, I love hearing people cheer when, crazy cool stuff happens on a screen.
Oh yeah.
But if it's an emotional experience, I do not want to hear a word out of anybody.
Even if it's something like, oh my gosh, wow, that scene was so good. It's like, bro,
stop. Just don't stop.
No,
please. Please.
Because it just pulls you out of the experience.
Immersion's
completely.
Broken.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to play this game alone in my apartment without anybody around. So
good.
I experienced it the best way possible.
If you're a loner, play this game. Yep. What would you give it out of 10? The Alex official rating, all things considered.
So just to put this out there, because I don't think I've given a lot of number grades on this podcast. I don't think we have. I think even when we graded, we did letter grades, not number grades.
You're right.
I don't give 10 out of 10s unless I think every single aspect of the game is perfect. Like 10 out of 10 is perfection. I don't give those. I haven't given that to any game or any movie
like
ever.
It would mean that there's not a single thing that you would want changed about
it.
Right?
Exactly. And so just to put that out there, the only thing about the game that's keeping it from being better is that the gameplay is very, very simple, and I totally understand why. But as a video game, sometimes like it works for what it is, but it does keep it from being as good as other games. But because of the music, because of the art style, because of the story, because of how it made me feel, and because of what I think it has the potential to be, not only for me, but for others, somewhere in the 8.25 to 8.75 range.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
I get it.
Trying to not let recency bias creep in too much.
Right.
And this is...
Well, it's totally okay to have a total, like... I mean, every rating score ever is always going to be subjective to some extent. So you know.
Mhm.
But that's a really good rating, especially coming from you, I think.
And I guess to give context to other games that would kind of be around that level, so you can kind of see, the scope, because that can help,
where it fits
right?
in your rankings.
Like Mario Galaxy is an 8.5 game. Breath of the Wild's probably ranked a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Smash is ranked higher. Like Mario Kart 8, I would rank it about the same range.
Totally different genres, but just
Completely.
still on that same high tier.
Kingdom
right?
Hearts 2 is around that range. Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep is around that range. So just so you guys can kind of see, like, this is a really good game. It's a really good game. And if any of you are interested, I'm always a supporter of indie developers. And, like, seriously, if you can find this game for $10 or less, this should be an automatic buy for all of you. But
now I know that Gris is Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
There's no added benefit for Spanish players.
No,
I'm guessing
because there's
no text or...
no dialogue, and Gris translates to gray. I think I said that. So, yeah, you don't. That's all you need to know is that the title of the game translated into English is Gray, and when you play
if you're a Spanish speaker, you have the perk of knowing what the title means without our telling you.
I don't know why I thought that was so funny, but it was.
It's true. It's true.
Exactly. That's why Spanish players, you're better than the rest of us.
Hey.
What can we say? Right.
Okay. Well, I think this will wrap it up. Yeah. No. I'm glad you got to finish a game for once.
Hasn't happened. Well, I finished Legend Arceus, but it has been almost 6 months since I finished a game. So
Legends Arceus was the very last game you finished, right? And that was
back in August.
because then you started Ori, and then
didn't finish.
the backlog is
And then
like.
I started Eastward. No, Xenoblade, and then didn't finish.
Oh
And
gosh.
then Eastward. And then
When will
didn't.
it be that you finish Xenoblade?
I don't even know if I can get through it in this year. Like, I really don't.
I was actually gonna say
Because
there's other games that are coming out.
Eastward and Ori will be finished in the calendar year 2023.
And Ori 2?
I'm not going to promise that. I don't know.
Okay. Maybe you could promise it if Tears of the Kingdom wasn't coming out.
If Tears of the Kingdom wasn't coming out, then Xenoblade 3 would be finished this year.
Yeah, because that would be your main 3D game to
game.
focus on. Yeah.
But yeah, man. We'll
Good
see.
stuff. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening or watching on YouTube or Spotify. Really, really big news. We have our very first supporter on Patreon.
Let's go.
Thank you. Thank you very much to Joshua. We know that Joshua has been listening for quite some time. He is a valued member of our community, and thank you so much. We really can't thank you enough for kicking us off like that. He is officially a down-to-earth cockatiel. That's the ranking.
And if you want to know how to be a down-to-earth cockatiel, go ahead and check us out on Patreon at DownNotableContent. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter, as well as our email address, all of which will be in the episode description below.
And just so you know, for down-to-earth cockatiels and parakeets, those are the two different tiers we have. Both of them, regardless of which tier you choose, get access to our bonus episodes, one of which we will be recording right after this. So, it's good stuff.
Content's coming.
Thanks so much, guys. Leave us reviews, tell your friends and family about us, and we love you all. Thanks for watching and listening.
Bye-bye.